Welcome back, beautiful people. I am Brittany Starks. I am your manifesting mentor. And today we're continuing chapter 8 of Becoming Supernatural with a section that truly lays the foundation for powerful internal change. We're about to explore the three parts of your brain: the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the analytical mind. And you'll learn that either can trap you in the past or help you move into the future. Dr. Joe takes it a step farther with a practice called kaleidoscope eyes. And this is designed to help you entrain your brain and body into a deep and meditative state. If you haven't already, make sure you check out the playlist that I created with all of the previous chapters and live discussions. It's linked in my bio if you're visiting from TikTok. It's also on my YouTube profile. With that being said, let's get into this next chapter or next section, part two: three minds in one brain: the conscious, subconscious, and analytical mind. By now, you know that when you change your brain waves from beta to alpha, you slow down your neocortex, which is the analytical thinking brain. As your brain waves slow down, you leave the domain of the conscious mind and enter the realm of the subconscious mind. We could say then that if you are somewhat conscious and aware, but not actively engaged in thought, your consciousness is moving out of the thinking neocortex and entering the midbrain, otherwise known as the subconscious, the home of the autonomic nervous system and the cerebellum. If you've ever witnessed someone completely captivated by a television show, so much so that when you tried to speak to them, they didn't hear you, it's possible that they were experiencing alpha brainwave states, a state highly suggestible to information. Suggestibility is the ability to accept, believe, and surrender to information without analyzing it. In this state, the viewer is also so engrossed, so focused on what they're watching, that they appear entranced and motionless. Nothing else exists to them except the object of their attention. If the person doesn't analyze the information that they are being exposed to, they are likely to accept, believe, and or surrender to it because there's no analytical filter. It makes logical sense then that the more suggestible you are, the less analytical you are. The opposite is also true. The more analytical you are, the less suggestible you are to the information. Therefore, it's less likely that your brain will be in an alpha brainwave or trance state. We're going to look at figure 8.1 to help you understand the relationship between suggestibility and the analytical mind, trance, and brainwaves. So he shows this little chart, which you guys know how I feel about showing charts at this point. Buy the book. What the creators of the commercials I mentioned early fully understand is the best way to program a person to take a desired action is to put them into an alpha brainwave state so that the information presented is not analyzed. When the commercial is repeated or a similar one with the same message is played over and over again, because repetition is how we learn, sooner or later that program is going to enter the viewer's subconscious. The more we are exposed to the stimulus, in this case the commercial, the more automatic the program response becomes. Eventually, when we've unconsciously memorized the stimulus and the response is automatic, the conscious mind no longer needs to think about or analyze the incoming information. Meanwhile, the subconscious mind maps the information, recording and storing it like a voice or video recording. Once it's mapped in your brain, each time you're exposed to the commercial, it continues to prime the same neural networks, further reinforcing the same program, thoughts, and beliefs. Now, not only can the information influence your health, but it can also give you the solution to the problem the commercial is actually creating. Other situations that increase suggestibility include shock, trauma, or a strong emotional reaction. For instance, when people are stunned or exposed to emotionally charged situations, it's common that the brain goes into an altered state. As the brain pauses because of a sensory overload, such as a motor vehicle accident, the person enters a suggestible state. In severe cases, the person surrenders to the shock, becomes frozen and numb, and their ability to think becomes impaired. Therefore, when someone is exposed to an aggressive rash and feels sickened by the images, combined with the right music and narration to create an ominous or foreboding mood, the door to the subconscious mind opens, making the person more easily programmable. If you remember, the subconscious mind sits right below the conscious mind. The limbic brain is the home of the subconscious and the autonomic nervous system, which controls all the automatic biological functions that happen on a moment to moment basis. Once a thought is programmed, like a servant carrying out the master's orders, the ANS carries out the request of the thought. If you are repeatedly told that your immune system weakens as you age, and that 1 out of 3 people who have had chickenpox in their life will get shingles, the emotionally charged experience allows the message to make it past your thinking, analytical mind. In response to this information, your ANS or autonomic nervous system follows the orders and can begin to actually weaken your internal defense system just from your suggestibility. And this is how, if you recall in the last video, how commercials in our society have programmed us into sickness, have programmed us into being insecure about our appearance and everything else, which is why commercials exist to teach us that we need something in order to feel valid and secure and all the things. And so this is amazing to learn, by the way. He says, for the advertisers to really get their money's worth in this commercial endeavor, it's best for them to repeatedly run the commercials late in the evening when we are most suggestible to programming. Why? Because melatonin levels rise in response to darkness, and melatonin causes the brain waves to slow down in preparation for sleeping and dreaming. Because our brain waves are moving from beta to alpha to theta to delta in the evening, people are less analytical and their subconscious window opens. This is also why nightlife and alcohol go hand in hand. Think about it, y'all. As daylight wakes us up in the morning and our subconscious, I'm sorry, as daylight wakes us up in the morning and our brain waves begins producing serotonin, the reverse process occurs. Our brain waves go from delta to theta to alpha, where again our subconscious is open to programming, and eventually to beta, which is where your analytical brain really turns on. So if you're an advertiser and you know the majority of the public is not aware of the way subconscious programming works, why not create a series of late night commercials with your desired messaging, accented with just the right amount of fright and concern so as to capture the viewer's attention, and proceed to program their autonomic nervous system to get busy taking orders just before they fall asleep? A good rule of thumb: don't watch anything on television or on the internet or participate in any mode of entertainment that you do not want to experience, not only before bed, but ever. That's a big rule of thumb. We're going to go into this next section called Kaleidoscope Eyes, Entranced in Trance. For years, I've been thinking about how we're all constantly programmed into self-limited beliefs. That is, believing that we need something outside of us to change how we feel inside of us. This is, after all, what advertising is all about: the never-ending dependence on and consumption of external sources to make us feel happy or better. This belief, which reminds us of our separation from wholeness, is incessantly ingrained in us through the media, television shows, commercials, the news, video games, websites, and sometimes even music. It's simple. It's a simple strategy, really. If you could suspend people in feelings of lack, fear, anger, opposition, prejudice, pain, sadness, and anxiety, they remain dependent on someone or something outside of them to make those feelings go away. If you remain in a perpetual state of busyness and are always preoccupied in survival emotions, you never actually have the opportunity to believe in yourself. But what if it was possible to undo or reverse that programming so you had the unlimited beliefs about yourself and your life? That's exactly what we've been doing for several years at our advanced workshops, using two simple tools, including one that children have been playing with for ages, a kaleidoscope. The only difference is that we're applying it in a technologically advanced way to induce trance. Up until this point, we've been moving into trance and alpha and theta and brainwave states with our eyes closed during meditation. But if we can create alpha and even theta brainwave states with our eyes open and intentionally expose ourselves to information relevant to our life's dreams and goals, we can program ourselves into supernatural states rather than the unconscious states we experience daily. But why the kaleidoscopes? For many years now, my primary passion has been the mystical. Each time I've had one of these profound and super lucid experiences, they create lasting changes within me that deepen my understanding of myself and my connection to the mystery of life. Once you have had a mystical experience and get your first glance behind the veil, you can never go back to business as usual. And with every subsequent mystical experience you have, you move closer to source, wholeness, oneness, and the indivisible, unified field. The good news is that the mystical experiences are no longer relegated to people like Teresa of Avila, Francis of Assisi, or a Buddhist monk who's been meditating for 40 years. Every person is capable of engaging, experiencing, and accessing the mystical. When I'm having a mystical experience, it seems more real to me than anything I've ever known in my life, and I lose track of space and time. Often, just before I become entwined in it, I see my mind and sometimes my outer world, circular geometric patterns made of light and energy. They tend to look like mandalas, except they're not static. They are standing waves of interfering frequencies that appear as fractal patterns. The only way I can describe their properties is that they are alive, moving, changing, and ever evolving into more complex patterns within patterns. That sounds like a kaleidoscope to me. These patterns look like what you see when you look into a kaleidoscope, but instead of being two-dimensional, they are three-dimensional. When I see the rest of my attention on these divine geometric patterns, they change. And I know in a moment, as my brain takes that pattern of information and transduces it into vivid imagery, I'm about to have a profound mystical experience. That's one of the reasons why the kaleidoscope in a media presentation was created for our community in the hope of inducing those types of experiences. But we couldn't find any real footage of a kaleidoscope. At the time, all the fractal geometry videos on the internet were computer generated, and we wanted to create a more realistic representation. Inspired by my very dear friend and talented artist, Roberta Brittingham, our journey began. In lengthy conversations for months, Roberta and I engaged in the creative process. It was her genius that gave birth to a tool that has helped change so many lives. After searching, Roberta ultimately found a family that has been making kaleidoscopes for 3 generations. So we bought one of their best pieces. Next, we rented a camera by RED, the leading manufacturer of the professional digital cinema cameras most often used in Hollywood films. We separated the kaleidoscope into 2 pieces. The tube that you look through at the end piece that rotates. I'm sorry, the tube that you look through and the end piece that rotates, where the crystals sit. We then aligned the camera lens with the part of the kaleidoscope that houses the crystals and added lights to amplify the color inside. Once we zoomed the camera into the end of the kaleidoscope, we affixed a motor onto it. Next, we slowly rotated the internal crystals so that the oils would move in smooth, consistent transitions. For hours in Seattle, Washington, in a studio, we captured beautiful images and colors while filming against a black backdrop. The black represents the absence of anything physical, the place where we become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, and in no time. This is the infinite black space or void that you learned about in chapter 3. As we recorded all of the footage over a course of several days, gravity caused the crystals and oils to fall and accelerate with every rotation. So, a technician had to tediously account for every second, frame by frame, to ensure the transitions were smooth. If the transition was not fluid, it risked breaking the viewer's focus or trance state. It took months to refine our footage into the 1 hour video that we used during our advanced workshops. Finally, we had a talented composer, Frank Piscotti, create the accompanying soundtrack. We wanted our students to be continuously mesmerized by the beautiful symmetry and changing geometric forms. And I believe, let me just check. I believe that concludes this part, but here we go. Yep. So that was part 2 of chapter 8. And now you can understand how Dr. Joe frames the three minds and how the kaleidoscope meditation is used to get you beyond them. We're ready to talk about the next key practice, which is mind movies. And in part 3, we're going to explore how visual storytelling anchored in elevated emotion can imprint your subconscious and magnetize your future. Let's get into it next. See you in the next video.